So starting out these daily messages the way that I often like to with a book. This is by Nick Vujicic, something like that. Life Without Limits. I didn't try to convince them otherwise. As much as people enjoy hearing the story... Oh, I wish I knew what this was. What is this? So Dad... Okay, I'm backtracking a bit. Dad and Mom didn't believe me. They simply did not think it possible that I'd beaten up a bigger, older, and fully equipped bloke. So he's got a life... Is this how it's life without limits, but he also just doesn't have limbs. That's part of his really unique, interesting story. And he does lectures and kind of empowers people, I think, to take control of their lives, but also to kind of enjoy life more. That's the message I got from him. So Dad and Mom didn't believe me. They simply did not think it possible that I'd beaten up a bigger, older, and fully equipped bloke. I didn't try to convince them otherwise. As much as people enjoy hearing the story, and as funny as certain aspects of it are, I have mixed feelings about even telling it since I don't advocate violence. I believe meekness is strength withheld. I'll always remember my first and only fight because I discovered that when push came to shove, I could overcome my fears. At that age especially, it felt good to know that I had the strength to defend myself. I guess you could say I learned that I could afford to be meek because I had tapped the strength inside me. Oh, I love this for, what was that book called? Silent Power or something like that. And this one is Nothing to be Frightened of by Julian Barnes. And this is a lot about death. Actually, I have two quotes here that my fingers are kind of just placed on right now. I have death dreams about as often as you might expect, some burial-oriented, involving subterranean enclosure and narrowing tunnels, others deploying a more active war movie scenario of being chased, surrounded, outnumbered, outgunned, of finding myself bulletless, held hostage, wrongly condemned to the firing squad, informed that there is even less time than I imagined, the usual stuff. I was relieved when, a few years back, a thematic variation finally came along. The dream in which I am registering at a suicide hostel. Okay, I'm sorry for that. I know that's like... A lot of this is sensitive material. In some country tolerant of death seekers, I have signed the forms and my wife has agreed either to join me in the venture or more usually to accompany and help me. However, when I get there, I find the place infinitely depressing. I realize I have made the wrong decision. I don't want to check out or even check in. I have made a mistake. Life is still full of interest and some small future. So there's actually a book like this. It's by an Icelandic author, and I'll leave it down in the comments. It's in the description section. It's not really the exact same thing, but I think it's someone who has a death wish, and he goes to some country in a war-torn nation, checks into a hotel or hostel, kind of thinking he's going to end his life, but then discovers that the people who live in this country, in this war-torn country, have struggles that he would never even dream of, and they still have this lust for life and passion for life, and that reawakens a passion for life within him. And so he leaves kind of really grateful for the experience and grateful that he discovered that he actually wants to live. So I have made a mistake. Life is still full of interest in some small future. Yet even as I think this, I am aware that once the process to which I have lent my signature has begun, I cannot back out. And yes, okay, let me not read that. But if not exactly proud of this new dream, I was at least pleased that my unconscious was getting updated, was still keeping pace with developments in the world. Okay, I wouldn't mind dying at all as long as I didn't end up dead at the end of it. So this is from a book, I think. I've been saying it for years and written it too. Look, here it is in the first novel of mine, the one not called No Weather. Okay, so in a book that he wrote, his first novel, rereading that sentence, I wonder if I should be embarrassed by the repetition of end, though if challenged, I would probably argue that it was a deliberate stressing of finality. Whether it was or not, I can't remember. So who is Enright quoting? One Thomas Nagel in a book called Mortal Questions. I Google him, professor of philosophy and law at NYU. I don't even know why I read this. Like, what did I get out of this? I didn't, on reflection, mind the synchronicity too much. Being proprietorial about dreams would be an odd vanity. Okay, so he found out someone else had a similar dream. That's not interesting. Maybe it is for later, who knows. So what did we just read about? We read about someone, or I read about someone who was able to defend himself without any limbs, and that he learned that he didn't actually need to resort to violence, because withholding the strength and keeping it within himself was actually his true strength. And the other book is talking about suicide, which is also a violent act. It's a violent transgression against the self, right? Interesting about violence. Talking a lot about violence here. And I was really inspired to pick up these books given that we have a full moon in Sagittarius from last night. And the reading I did last night about Sagittarius full moon was talking about getting unstuck. And so I thought, life without limits is kind of a good idea for getting unstuck. Okay, let's get back to it. So that other book was talking about suicide and the idea that once having checked into this hotel, and it is a dream, right? He realizes he doesn't actually want to continue with it, but he's already signed it. He's already signed some kind of document here. So what does that even mean? Well, there are certain things I could say, but I don't want to say them because they're too controversial, I guess, for the internet. But especially people watching it, I think it's a very sensitive topic, and I don't want to offend anyone or make anyone uncomfortable or trigger anyone, obviously. And I may leave like a warning, trigger warning, just in case anyone deals with these kinds of things. I don't want anyone to feel triggered. We're dealing with so much in the world right now. Something about the title of the book is being drawn to that, nothing to be frightened of. And possibly, he's dealing a lot with death in this book because I think it was a book that he wrote as he's getting older, he's thinking a lot about death. So there's something about the dreams that he's having are in order for him to process something that he's afraid of. And in the dreams, he's having different scenarios of what it means to die. And one of those scenarios is suicide. And I don't know what his personal relationship is with that, right? But it's just kind of there. And then the discovery of when something is taken away from us, then we can sometimes, if it's something we took for granted or something we didn't appreciate or something we had struggled with, we can sometimes value it more. Or just get a different appreciation and understanding for it. And so he's in this between space, both because he's dreaming, but also because he's in the dream, just checked into a hotel where he's giving his life away. Choosing to sacrifice his own life. But then realizing he doesn't actually want to, but he's already in the process of doing it. And so that dream helps him investigate his relationship to death in a really unique circumstance. And I think that both of these people are examining their relationship with mortality and with their own strength, their own inner strength, within unique circumstances, one in which a person is faced with violence and finds out that against all odds he's able to defend himself physically, and another in which a person is faced with mortality and finds that against all odds he actually wants to choose life. And it is against all odds, because he's choosing he doesn't want his life. This hotel that he's signed up for doesn't want his life. So to then realize he actually wants it is kind of a deep revelation for both, right? Both of them are having these deep kind of insights into their own spirit and their own strength, their own will to succumb, to survive something, to overcome a difficult situation. So we have the devil here underneath the deck, and the devil being Capricorn. Saturn is about the limits, the limitations that we have, both placed upon us by others, but both on ourselves, right? Through any kind of addiction or codependency, we place limitations on ourselves. And there's a bit of, and this might be a strange way of putting it, but there's a bit of comfort seeking when you place these types of limitations on yourself. And addiction has a sense of comfort to it. There's something that is drawing you in to this addictive behavior, something pleasing to you that you keep repeating. And even if it's a distressful thing that you do, there's somehow something pleasing about it. And now I'm not claiming that anyone watching this has an addiction. That's for each to kind of figure out on their own. But it does have a quality, even if it's not an addiction, of something that you are staying inside of because either you don't know the way out or because there's a comfort level there. And so you keep choosing the same thing. Because I was inspired by that video of Sagittarius full moon and wanting to get unstuck, I would like to explore how we get unstuck from the devil. And we do have the Seven of Wands right underneath, with the Six of Cups underneath that, with the Hermit underneath that. I mean, there's a process here of going within, and there it is, right there, that stuckness, the Eight of Swords. That's the exact feeling that's coming up. There's emotional attachments to the past, or just kind of emotional attachments in general that are keeping you in this loop. And there's a certain isolation with the Hermit of possibly needing isolation, or feeling that you need isolation, or needing isolation in order to understand the situation. But then sometimes that isolation will just keep you further in the, further within the problem, struggling to get the support that you need. So let's figure the situation out, because I think it's important to do that. And again, this video is for entertainment purposes, and if you're dealing with anything that's as heavy as what we just talked about, then please, seek the right people to speak to, and not tarot readings, though they could be like a supplemental thing, but you really need to speak to the right person, health professional, mental health professional who can help. Infinite potential, 24 is a 6, so we're getting some kind of balance here with regards to pregnancy. Something that's been growing. Okay. Let's see how this applies. The strength of the warrior without the fight, right? So that's exactly what he was saying, that he can defend himself. He's found out that he's able to defend himself physically. However, the true strength, right? And let's see how he said it. It's a really interesting way of putting it. I believe meekness is strength withheld. I'll always remember my first and only fight, because I discovered that when push came to shove, I could overcome my fears. At that age especially, it felt good to know that I had the strength to defend myself. I guess you could say I learned that I could afford to be meek, because I had tapped the strength inside me. Okay. So the strength of the warrior without the fight, the patience and wisdom gained for many lifetimes. The solidness of the earth beneath our feet, watching and waiting as many dramas unfold, all seen many times before. This allows us in our own time to realize the repetition. Growth 14. Yeah. Yeah. So that's, this kind of addiction or this kind of repetitive behavior requires that you don't engage with it. And so you're given something that is addictive or something that is codependent or something that's unhealthy, and you could engage, right? It could be as simple as a fight. Someone wants to fight. And you've been down that road before, and you've seen that you're able to defend yourself, like the author that we just read from. However, you also have seen the negatives of that, of getting involved in that, right? In that life. And it becomes a lifestyle for some. You're constantly fighting. And so there's something about being able to observe. There's something about being able to drop back into your body, into safety of being inside your body. Right? So even if there's physical threat in front of you, your body is safe, and that's something that you need to kind of get in touch with. My body is a safe place. Nothing bad will happen here. I am safe in my body. I'm safe on this earth, right? The solidness of the earth beneath our feet. I'm safe on this earth. And then you watch, and this, I'm not talking about actual threat. I mean, this could just be someone who's starting up a fight with you verbally. And you're watching the drama unfold, and you're able to look at it observe it from a side as it's happening, even though you're right in front of it. And then as you recognize the repetition of something that's happening, you're able to disconnect from it. You're able to say, this isn't my story, this isn't something that I want to take part in, I'm disconnecting my energy, I'm retrieving my energy, I'm taking my power back with the Strength card. And we'll come back to that because it's very interesting. It's coming up with a lot with the Two of Cups. Wow. And this could even be, this doesn't have to be fight. This could be like a love situation. This could be something that you're lusting for, right? A person, maybe they're involved, maybe you're involved with someone else. Maybe there's some reason why this isn't really healthy. Maybe it just doesn't feel healthy, because it's obsessive, or it's just, kind of an unhealthy energy behind the connection. And so you're needing to say to yourself, I know this feels good, but this isn't good for me. This isn't healthy for me. So I need to have strong boundaries with the Strength card towards others and towards myself as well. Patiently waiting in absolute stillness, safely held in the love of the divine. Allow the key to come forward in its own time. Is there a sense of wanting to be somewhere else? Let that go and look and see all that is around you. This is a time to gather yourself for the journey ahead as yet unrevealed. So what I love here is a sense of wanting to be somewhere else. And when you think of Neptune, which is a planet that governs Pisces, Neptune is all about fantasy and illusion and escapism. And it's actually associated a lot with addiction. And so the key or the kind of seed behind addiction is that there's a desire to escape, right? A lack of fulfillment or something unhealthy in your day-to-day life that feels really toxic and difficult to deal with. And instead of dealing with it head on, there's a desire to kind of run away and escape into a different reality, into a different fantasy. And a lot of that will have to do with your survival instincts, like fight or flight, being turned off in some way. Not feeling like you can actually address the situation. You cannot leave, you cannot fight it, and so you're falling into this addictive pattern. So that's coming from a place of wanting to be somewhere else or deal or be in a different situation in your life. So try to let that go and look and see all that is around you. Okay. And this is the time to gather yourself for the journey ahead as yet unrevealed. What's happening when you're staying in a situation for a very long time that's unhealthy, you slip into freeze. Because your mind is registering, there's an unsafe situation. I'm not fighting and I'm not running away, so I'm going to freeze. Okay. So there's a need here again, just like we said about being safe in the body. This is safely held in the love of the divine. All right, so some of us believe in God, some of us believe in spirits, some of us believe in angels, people who've passed on in our lives who are guiding us, or just believing in the goodness of something, of some kind of force that's out there that's meant to protect you in your life, and holding on to that safety within is very helpful as well in that kind of time. So how is the key going to come forward? Allow the key to come forward in its own time. And what is the key? Well, the key would be a way to leave a situation, right? A way to come in and come out of a situation. And the key would also be a way to solve something. How do we solve the situation that feels like it's repetitive? Feels like you're just kind of stuck in a loop. This is really heavy energy that this reading's dealing with. I feel like it's one of the heaviest ones so far. We're dealing here with the 7th chakra, which is the crown chakra. So it's a clearing on a spiritual level. And let's see how this is all happening for us here. So we have change with the 6 of Swords. The 6 of Swords is about, well, at least mentally, on a mental level, you're able to disconnect from a time of turmoil, a time of chaos, and find yourself in a state of peace. Reach a level of peace in your mind. And this comes from disconnecting emotionally. So the mental part comes after you have actually done the emotional work to disconnect. And you may not even realize you did the emotional work, because what is the emotional work? It might be crying, right? And we have such a negative association in our society with crying, with tears, with mourning, with grief. You know, it's like no one wants to really spend that much time in there. But if you did spend a lot of time crying, you would not know, you know, it feels like, oh, wasted time. No, you were actually integrating within you the message that what you're currently dealing with isn't working for you. Right? If you just kept laughing and smiling through it, you may have not integrated, this is unhealthy, I need to leave. So the tears were an ability for you to disconnect or to cut the cord emotionally. And through that process, you know, through however long you needed to grieve that, you can finally look back and say, that was a tough time. I'm at a peaceful place now mentally. I have disconnected, I've moved on mentally. Now, you could still physically be in this devil energy if you're living with someone who's, you know, unhealthy for you, or the environment that you're living in, or the job place that you are, whatever it is that is associated for you with this, if this is connecting with you in some way. Now, there is support here with love. Love doesn't have to be traditional love. It could be friendship. It could be a dog, a pet, right? It could be it's some form of support. It could be a therapist. It could be a tarot reader. There's someone who's able to see you, but I don't think it's like a tarot reader online that you're watching, because this is a person who's also connecting with you personally. So this is like a one-on-one. And that's important because there's a resonance there. You get to look into them, they get to look into you, and you get to share your messages, and there's a feeling of peace and love and harmony with this card. Now, the way that I would look at it with the Strength card is that you're co-regulating. So self-regulation is how I often think about the Strength card. It's a ability to connect with your inner child and take care of your inner child. Meet your inner child where it is. You know, I need food, I need shelter, I need support, I need to get through a tough situation, I need someone to talk to. That's your inner child calling for some kind of assistance. And then you, as the adult version of yourself today, can see that maybe you're hungry, you go and make yourself a meal, you go and order something. That's the relationship that you have with yourself, that you've built with yourself over the years. But co-regulation is when someone else can help you self-regulate. So it could be a therapist, it could be a friend, it could be a partner. And sometimes it's as simple as sitting down for, you know, a cup of coffee and talking. Sometimes it's both of you cooking together or sharing a meal can be co-regulation. or someone coming with you to a doctor's appointment and being there for you. They're helping you self-regulate. They're helping you regulate through something. Or someone witnessing you through a tough time and sitting with you and holding your hand and talking you through it. Or you doing this for the other person, or both of you doing it for each other. If it's a situation where you're both doing it for each other, that's a situation that could easily slip into the devil. Because you do need, if you're in an addictive pattern or an unhealthy pattern, you need someone who's really balanced enough in themselves where they can meet you where you're at and be a source of strength for you. And that can be a lot to ask of someone, right? When it's not a professional situation. So also be mindful of that this is a lot to ask of someone, but it is something that you are completely deserving of. 100%. 1,000,000%. So don't ever feel guilty to ask. Obviously, don't ever feel guilty to ask for help or to be transparent with people and show them where it is that you need support so that they can meet you in that place. This is a really deep reading. I don't think I can do like the whole thing. It's a lot, but we're just going to get through what we have here. And then, hopefully you have other people you can reach out to for support, or if you need a private reading, that's available as well. 7 of Coins here, we're talking about, yes, there's a groundedness, but there's also a level of, I think it's almost like a predictability or like a trusting. There's something that you trust, like I have put my energy into this and I trust that it will give me back. And that is also something that you have to learn over time to see what something is, right? To investigate. Meaning, as you get to know people better, you realize if they are dependable, if they're actually going to show up the way that they said they would. They may tell you, they may promise you things, but then if they're not actually showing up for you, then that's the time that you need to disconnect your energy and put it elsewhere, because then that's the devil too, right? That's a codependency. That's you being kind of addicted to someone's energy who's not even, they're not even showing up, or they're not even giving to you. So this has got an energy of delay, because that's what it says here, but the 7 of Coins is harvest. So it's like after you've put in energy for a while, you get it back. And this is your healing journey. So what does that mean? Well, temperance to me is a lot about forgiveness. And I do have an issue with the word forgiveness in a lot of ways, because I think that sometimes it denotes a situation where you end up forgiving someone for something they did that really should not be, should not be inviting those people back into our energy. And so this is something about a delay. I wasn't going to do this, but I'm just going to ask, what is this about? Yeah, okay, it's the same message, so there really was no reason to do it. Knight of Coins, it takes time. Well, it takes time to heal. It takes time to process what it is that happened. It takes time to find the right tools and the right people that can be there for you and can be a support system to you. And a support system doesn't necessarily mean they're doing the work. It just means that, they're willing to hold your hand through the process and be a person of strength, a person of integrity in your life, who actually shows up the way that they say they will, or, as much as they can, given their own life circumstances. In the midst of a meltdown, I breathe through the discomfort and come out the other side. That's such an important tool, breath work and grounding work. And I've mentioned this before, but if you're not familiar with polyvagal theory, the dorsal vagal, what is it called? Vagus nerve? No, something like that. But dorsal vagal shutdown, which is pretty much when you're in a state of freeze, like we said before. There's fight, flight, and freeze. And fawn. Fawn is also similar to freeze. So there's a sense here of coming back online, in a sense of being able to either run away from something or fight it, But again, the true strength comes from not fighting, right? That's what that book was about. Being meek has a level of strength to it. And there's a certain grace and elegance of this dance, of knowing how to deal with these situations, because there are some situations where you do need to fight, right? And hopefully no one's dealing with anything like that. This feels more like something you need to disconnect from and find support and strengthen yourself, and then slowly rebuild yourself. I wasn't sure why this came out, but I dish out compliments sincerely and liberally. That might be part of this process of gaining trust with others. It's not buttering them up, but it might just be about learning how to develop healthy relationships after a time of not having those, or relying on people who aren't really supportive or healthy or helpful. Let's see some of the oracle messages I got before, just to see what it was about. The strength of the warrior without the fight. Patiently waiting in absolute stillness, safely held in the love of the divine. I mean, there is a passivity there. It's interesting. I just want to go back very gently to that dream of being in that hotel and realizing that he doesn't actually want that, what he signed up for, that he actually wants to live. And so choosing life after a time of darkness, after a time of, unhealthy behavior or unhealthy dependency on things. And seeing that you can actually be strong in that, in all of that experience. And I will tell you from my own experience, as much as I can here, is that when you rediscover your ability to stand on your own 2 feet after a time of really being devastated by something external to you, you will just find out how strong you actually are, and how much the thing that you felt you depended on for strength was actually holding you back, was actually making you weak. Yeah. Okay, so that's all I've got for today. Thanks for watching.